What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, J Mill. J Mill, if you like. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But yeah, let's get into it. So today we're going to take a look at the Jets defense versus the Cowboys offense. This is going to be a pretty interesting matchup because the offense of the Cowboys is now starting to run into a bunch of injuries. So we know Cavante Turpin's out. We know that CD Lamb is out. And also, we might be missing Tyler Guyton. We're already missing Tyler Booker. Tyler Smith popped up with some knee tendonitis, but I think he's going to play. But all in all, it's going to be a very interesting week. I also think that Jaden Blue will play this week, which will allow the Cowboys to do something a little different on offense. So let's start with the running game. So it's going to be very imperative that the Cowboys get some things going in the running game this week. The Jets look to struggle a little bit in some aspects of the run game, but not much. So I thought there would be a lot of runs to the edges because of Williams being inside for the Jets and how he's such a beast and he's such a monster. And for the most part, that is where teams have more success. But it's not like the Jets are giving up a ton of explosives on the edges in the running game to running backs. It seems like they have a similar issue to the Cowboys, which is containing mobile quarterbacks. So this week they don't have to worry about that, which I think is going to bode well for their defense. But let's take a look at, some ways that the running backs have been successful. So in here, we're looking at Miami, who they played this past week. And Miami comes out right here, just 5 down linemen, single back set, couple wide receivers out there. And the Jets look to match it, pretty standard here. They have, their 4 down linemen and 2 linebackers. So it looks like they're going in nickel. There are 7 guys in the box, but now you see here the Jets, they motion the tight end in close and they motion another back into the backfield. And what that does for the Jets is that brings a couple of more guys into the box. So now you have 8 guys in the box instead of 6 like they originally started with. So now they know it's a heavy rundown. All right. So the thing I notice about Miami here is they don't hesitate, right? They're not getting up. Tua's not making a whole bunch of checks at the line of scrimmage and setting extra protections and checking where the run goes. So what that tells me is they designed this to go here and Tua just ran what was called, right? So boom, as the running back gets the ball, this is going to be imperative for the Cowboys, right? Because as you see, everything has broken down, right? These 2 guys are free. And this guy here is kind of watching, but this lineman does a good job of making sure to cut off in the inside. So, this guy's setting the edge and expecting these 2 guys to make the play, but you just have a great play by the running back here who makes both of these guys miss. And now he's 2 and through the hole, and he's just beasting it before anybody even has a chance to make a play on him. He's all the way down the field. He gets 21 yards on the play. And what I'm hoping is, since we're going to see Jaden Blue here this week, that he's going to kind of be the guy that does some of that outside of the tackles running and gets onto the edge. But even if not, I mean, the Cowboys do have an opportunity here, even if they don't do that with Jaden Blue, and I'll show you why. So take a look here. The Cowboys come out, right? Boom. So the Cowboys are much more deliberate in their run set. So they got, 5 down linemen, but they have tight end to line of scrimmage. And then they have Javonte here, out there as the single back. And Green Bay matches it with, 1, 2, 3 linemen, defensive linemen, maybe 4 here, 2 guys in the box. But what I like that the Cowboys do is similar to what, Miami just did. As you see, the Cowboys get up and they run the freaking play, right? So there wasn't a ton of Dak doing checks, setting protections. He's like, this is the play that's called. This is what we're going to go to. So I think that's going to help them against the Jets here. What's different about this play is I like that the Cowboys use so many different people in the run game. And that's going to help in a week like this where you're down a Cavante Turpin and where you're down a Miles Sanders, right? The defense can't just come in and go, okay, Javonte Williams is going to be the bell cow. He's going to get it every time. No, the Cowboys in this particular play, let's see who they get the ball to. Boom, that's Ryan Flournoy, right? So now as a defense, you can't just key in and say, we're going to stop Javonte Williams and we should be good to go. No, you have Ryan Flanoy now getting some of the Cavante Turpin type reps in a game that Cavante Turpin played and having some success too here, right? You had a good seal block there, good seal block by the tight end. He had a lane and an alley, and almost there, almost. If he could have found a way to break one more tackle, even George Pickens with the big block, he might have been able to score on that play. But that's the type of running game that the Cowboys are going to probably have to use this week in order to keep Javonte fresh, right? Because we want to still run it and pound it with Javonte. We want Javonte being that dude, but you still need some of that eye candy, that misdirection, that stuff that widens the defense, because maybe Javonte's strong suit isn't necessarily running fast, or breakaway speed. He's more of I will pound it, I will wear you down as the game goes along type of back. And it's good to see that the Cowboys will still have some of those plays in their arsenal. So one of the other things I wanted to take a look at is when I was looking at the Jets metrics and at their film, I also noticed that they didn't get beat a lot with the deep pass, right? So that's another thing, and I think it's because of the push that they get in the middle with Quentin Williams. But one of the times that they did, it was here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? So the Bucs come out, and I do think the Cowboys will come out in sets like this, and I do think the Jets will show this type of defense against the Cowboys. So the Cowboys have some opportunities to hit it. But the thing they need to do is we need to make sure that our secondary guys are winning, right? Because if this is the point of the game and you don't have a CeeDee Lamb, you don't have a Cavante Turpin, that means your Jalen Tolberts are winning these routes because Sauce is probably going to be traveling with Pickens for most of the game. So you're going to want to have some of the others, the Ryan Flanoys of the world, win on some of these routes, even maybe a Jake Ferguson. So here we go, right? Now, in this particular scenario, this is when you're passing. This is what you got to do, right? It's the Jets. They're showing a blitz. They could have some guys drop out, have some guys come. All these guys could be rushing. So whatever way you're thinking about this, as a quarterback, you got to make sure that you're setting these protections and getting this all lined up so that you don't get killed, right? So they do. They do a good job. Baker's over here. He's letting everybody know. Bucky Irvin switches up to make sure that he's in the right place and set that front of the pocket because they're like, we're going to take a shot, right? So on the snap of the ball, boom. Looks like everybody does a really good job of picking this up. This guy's even uncovered so he can go help. So you got block here, block, block. And then you got this guy sitting here free to help whoever. The Jets actually initially are doing a really good job with this guy, and this guy, but this guy's pulled up these two guys. So now you basically have a one-on-one with a wide receiver with a safety, and that's exactly what they take the advantage of. Boom, it's a big, gigantic play. If Buddy could have kept his foot in, he could have went. And actually, he probably could have had that guy too if he wanted. So this is where the Cowboys are going to have to take their chance and take their shots if they can protect it and get it up. So one of the shots that the Cowboys took in the game where I can show you where they might have a little bit of success against the Jets defense. So boom, right? You have the Cowboys with their 5 down linemen. You have 2 wide receivers at the top, 2 at the bottom, the tight end going in motion, and you have the single back right next to Dak Prescott just trying to, make sure he's in there for protection purposes as well. So Dak sees it, what I'm saying? As you see here, Dak is pretty set with his protection, so he doesn't make any changes. But similar to the way that Tampa did, you had the running back Hunter Lipke here, just kind of step up in the middle of the pocket, make sure nobody comes free, and that he's there to clean everybody up. This guy, Terrence Steele, is losing a little bit pretty poorly right now. But boom, Dak is protected. He gets to the top of his drop. Now, what I want you to see here is, boom, just before he lets it go, Dak is going to go here, right? Which is where Tampa went when they had their opening. But man, if he would have just saw Cavante right here. I mean, Cavante's even with this guy. So if we're talking about a foot race, I'm taking that all day. These two guys are below, and this guy's get so backed up because he wants to give help over the top here and over the top here that you just have, what is that? 14 yards of space wide open. And Cavante even sits. But Dak, he was being aggressive on this play. He goes deep to Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert does not make the catch. It ends up being an incomplete pass, a little bit of an overthrow. But that's just one of those things where, we see it here. We're looking at the film and just watching it. Those opportunities are also going to be there against the Jets. Now, that's not going to be Cavante Turpin running that, but that that type of play didn't require Turpin's speed, right? That's scheme. That's scheming things open. So as long as the Cowboys continue to do that, that play can be it still could be Jalen Tolbert and George Pickens on the outside. The Jets do play a lot of single high safety. That play could be Flanoy in the middle. That could be Jalen Brooks in the middle. That could be Jake Ferguson lining up out of the slot, or maybe some of your bigger tight ends like Brevin Spanford, Luke Schoolmaker. It could be any one of those guys running that play. It could even be Jaden Blue lined up in the slot as a wide receiver, running that play instead of in the backfield of protection. You could still have Hunter Lipke on the field at the same time, but use Jaden Blue more in that role so that you don't have to worry about him in pass protection. But that play, this particular play will be there, and it will be there multiple times that day, and you can line up different guys to take advantage of what you want to do. If the Jets match it with bigger personnel, you can have Jaden Blue out there and just kill it with your speed. If they try to match it with speed, you can put one of your tight ends in that slot situation and match it with power and size. So I feel like this particular play, the Cowboys should be running it about 4 or 5 times during the course of this game, because it is going to work out pretty well for them. So another way that I think the Cowboys are actually going to have their biggest advantage is in the quick passing game, right? Because you're thinking we have a whole lot of new linemen in the game, and it doesn't mean that you want to take away all of your deep shots. You still want to take those deep shots like the one we just looked at, but where you want to make your hay, on your second downs is a lot of this quick passing game, because it looks like the Jets, Sauce Gardner, really good guy, but other than that, the Jets have some problems in the safety area. They have some problems in the linebacker area, and their defensive front is probably the strongest portion of their team. So if you get the ball out quick to your guys in space, even though you don't have all of your normal guys, like if the Cowboys had CeeDee Lamb and Kevontae Turpin, this game, and they were playing with their regular offensive line, I actually think they would beat up on the Jets pretty badly here. But I do think this is going to be a little bit of a closer game, but we'll get into that more tomorrow. So let's take a look here. Tampa comes out shotgun set, right? Just a one back in the backfield. It looks like they're pretty condensed except for this guy. The guy at the bottom is pretty far out, but all the other formation is pretty condensed, which kind of, lines up with the way the Cowboys play too. The Jets match it up here 4-2, so they've got, a nickel. It's just this guy is playing down a little bit more to try to take away this tight end, and Sauce Gardner is all up on Mike Evans, right? He's right up on him. So they send a guy in motion to get that side of the field isolated. Safety's helping over the top for Mike Evans. And Baker Mayfield knows where he's going right away. Even though Sauce Gardner is there, boom, he still goes there right away. Mike Evans rewards him and makes the catch. Short out of bounds, good to go. The thing that I like about this is because I personally know that George Pickens has a little bit more oomph to his game at this point. He's a little bit younger than Mike Evans is. So what you end up having is a guy who can keep his footing and kind of make Sauce Gardner pay. And we're going to see that right there. Not against Sauce Gardner, but against the Packers here. So Cowboys come out in a very similar set to what the Packers ran. To what the Bucks ran. I think the Bucks running back was on this side instead of that side. And say the tight end started over here, condensed, and then motioned over to here to basically end up in this type of alignment. The only guy that's really far away from the ball is this guy down here at the bottom. So let's take a look and see how the Cowboys play it. As you see, the Packers, they play with 4-2. Now, the way that the Packers line up is a little bit different in this particular situation than the way the Jets are going to line up, because the Jets have the two defensive tackles, and one guy is a pretty big monster. So they're going to want to have him, lining up probably, say, a shade over here, right? Kind of in between these two guys. And he's probably going to be a little bit closer to the ball, not necessarily allowing this much space in the middle. But once the rush starts, they close all those gaps immediately, right? That's what they do. They rush up the field, and now it's more of a traditional rush. So the thing that the Packers do is they give George Pickens a free release off the line of scrimmage. Sauce Gardner is not going to do that. He's going to be a pair similar to what he is to Mike Evans. But the result is still the same, right? Once you get to the top of the route, boom. Like I said, I expect Sauce to be much closer up here. But what I do think Sauce is going to have trouble with is that aspect of George Pickens, how he made that guy miss. Now he's physical, right? Drags that guy, boom, right there to the pylon for a touchdown. That is what the Jets are going to have to contend with all day. Even if Sauce is up and good in coverage, as we just saw with Mike Evans, it's not impossible to complete a pass to him. George Pickens has good size, really good at the contested catch, but what he's been with the Cowboys is he's better after the catch as well. He's really good at finding his footing and then getting more yards. Once he sheds that first tackle, he becomes a load to, get down after he has the ball in his hands. Some of the other things I do want to see too, besides the contested catch stuff, I think making Sauce Gardner chase him across the field on crossing routes is going to be pretty nice. And I do think that's one of the Cowboys' strengths, even without some of their top end talent at the receiver position. That's just going to have to be the offensive line holding up and giving time for those routes to develop. But for the most part, I feel like the Cowboys will, if Dak throws the ball, say 38 times this game, the Cowboys are going to attack the Jets with the quick passing game probably about 20 times out of those 38 attempts. And then you'll probably mix in some, some screens, a couple of quick smoke routes. And then, you'll probably have about 5 to 7 deep shots and then about 5 to 7 intermediate shots that they take during the game. But this is going to be the bulk of the passing attack. And I actually think it's a very good way to attack the Jets. And I do think the Jets are going to struggle tackling. If the Jets are having an awesome tackling day, then you just tip your cap to them. But all the advanced analytics say get your guys the ball quickly, get them out in space. Guys like Jake Ferguson are going to have a huge game because the Jets actually struggle with some of the same things the Cowboys do. Poor tackling, poor reading on coverage. Even if you have one guy like Sauce Gardner who's correct and maybe he can just man up and follow that guy all day, well, what the other guys are doing, that's going to cause some busts. That's going to cause some mistakes. And then you might have a chance for the Cowboys to put up a lot of points here. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at JMillerIYL. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com, knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. Any questions, any comments that you have, leave them below. Love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, J Mill. J Miller, if you like, this has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.